Generation X?
Generation X describes people who are born between roughly 1965 and 1980. Every generation seems to think that they are the cursed generation. So, for example, Gen Z will say, our childhood has been ruined by social media and smartphones. Millennials will say, we can't buy a house. Baby boomers will say, our retirement is very uncertain. But what I've kind of discovered is that really the true losers in the generational war are Generation X.
So tell me what it is.
Welcome to Pegasus versus the World, where we take on challenges, comedy, trending topics, and some travel.
City boy! City boy!
All right, why Gen X is the real loser generation? Let's hear it. Now, I did a reaction to a video that said why Gen X is the strongest generation. And not the greatest, because it was saying are the grandparents of Gen X, I believe the folks that went through the Great Depression and some world wars, you know. I think even the Dust Bowl was around that time. I could be confusing that with something else. But they were the greatest generation. But the strongest generation was told to me by one of these videos on YouTube that Gen X was the strongest. But now I see who's the real loser generation. So I don't know. But I like hearing this candor. And I'm Gen X. I'm 1980, right before the cutoff, you guys. I didn't even know that, because on my other channel, I do all these music reactions. And there's some real Gen Xers, right? People who were born in 1965. And I'm reacting to some of the music they grew up listening to. And it's really cool to hear that. But I'm so far, I'm literally on the edge of Gen X, because I was born in 1980. So yeah, man, let's listen to it. This is coming from the channel The Economist. Wow, I aspire to be like you, man. You're like 3.5 million subscribers. You're doing it. Anyways, this dropped 3 months ago. It has about 500,000 views. Let's see what's going on here. I always think this is a great conversation to be had. If you rock with me, I'm Black Pegasus. Link in the description of my other channels. Like, share, comment, subscribe. Let's go.
Really, the true losers in the generational war are Generation X.
So tell me what it is that makes us Generation X really so unusual.
So one thing that's unusual about Generation X is that no one is really that interested in them. So if you look, for example, at the number of books that have been written about Generation X, or even things like the number of times that people search for Generation X online compared with, say, searching for baby boomers, they're just much less popular, basically. They're also much less likely than any other generation to know that they are themselves part of Generation X. And so there's this weird thing where they've kind of...
That's crazy, because I just found out. I never knew. I was like, am I a millennial? Am I Gen X? I honestly did not know. I did not know until the last few months. So he's not lying there. I would say we had some pretty good movies come out during our generation, though. That's a highlight. Maybe no one wrote a book about us, but we had some pretty fire movies in the 80s, bro. Well, that might be millennial movies, dog, because a lot of the really good stuff started coming out in the mid-80s and the 90s, the stuff that I really rock with. But there's a few fire joints that came out in the 80s. Wow, this is interesting.
Vanished from public consciousness.
So why should we be thinking about them?
Gen X are at a tricky age at the moment. There's this theory called the U-bend of life theory, which actually has quite a lot of academic support. And basically what this says is that you're pretty happy when you're young and you're pretty happy when you're old, but you're pretty miserable when you're in middle age. So there was a recent poll by Ipsos which found that roughly a third of Gen Xers are either not very happy or not happy at all. Now, the question is, why does this happen? There's a few reasons. One is that some chronic health issues begin to emerge in middle age. People kind of come to realize that they're not going to achieve all they want to achieve in their career. And also at this tricky stage where often they have to look after both children and parents. So it's not surprising that people find those years to be particularly difficult.
Yo, that's really interesting. I'm a happy person. I'm stressed a lot and I'm paranoid. So I worry about a lot of things, but I've been that way my whole life. Overall, I'm happy. My health is really good and I've been doing some things. I'm going to keep it real, y'all. I went and got these damn stem cells and my blood work looks kind of crazy. My cholesterol, I've been needing to get my cholesterol down a little bit. And it's just going down. I haven't really, I'm just going to be honest. I haven't changed my diet. I eat pretty healthy, but not you know what I mean? I know I could be more disciplined because I have been before. And I just, I haven't changed anything, but since I got stem cells, my cholesterol is just all my blood work looks actually really good. Anyways, I'm pretty healthy. I am at that phase where I'm raising 2 young children, and my dad is really old, and he's had a stroke, a minor heart attack. Um, so there's pressures there. Also, I'm at this unique phase because I'm a lunatic. I think I'm still going to get to where I need to get successfully. There hasn't been some realization that I cannot be successful, that I cannot create some type of wealth and leave that for my family. There's none of that. I'm on the shot clock, baby. That's how I work every day. I'm recording, I'm doing contracts, I'm throwing events, I'm doing whatever I can to, get mine to, have a little something. And so I haven't been to a realization phase that something is gonna happen. No, 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 no. Like, we on the shot clock. We gonna get it. Think and grow rich. So yeah, a little bit different, but I do understand what he's saying. And I have gone. My first real bad injury was when I hit 40 in jujitsu. Like, I've been doing jujitsu for a while. Everything's fine, and then I get some pretty bad injuries because the body starts changing, and my body has changed. Aches and pains, and this and that, and staying sick longer, and blah 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 blah. So there is something to what he's saying for sure.
So those are the age dependent things, but you're also talking about a slightly different cohort effect, right?
Yeah, so there's age effects, which is kind of like where Gen X are right now, and then there's cohort effects, which is like Gen X, the people who are in Gen X are themselves kind of cursed in some way. And that's the kind of second plank of the argument, which is that yes, Gen X are uniquely challenged. So one way of looking at this is by looking at their incomes. Now, one historical pattern that has endured for a long time is that the current generation earns more than the previous generation. That was true of the baby boomers. That's also true of Generation Z or Gen Z and of the millennials. The Gen X have done better than the previous generation, the boomers, but by the smallest amount of any generation. So in that sense, their income growth has been pretty weak. Now the question is, why is that? One factor is to do with kind of cultural preferences. There's this idea that goes around that certainly in comparison to the baby boomers, Generation X are less kind of keen on being corporate drones. And so that might mean that they just put less effort in at work.
That was me 100%. I hated working a day job. And because I went out and had to hustle independently, I was pretty much a starving artist most of my life. I didn't start seeing a little bit of money until I was 36 years old. I think when I was 36 years old, that was 2016, I think I started making $60,000 a year. Other than that, until then, I was not even just broke. I was probably making about, there were times where I'd make $12,000 a year when I was like in my 20s and I just paid bills and that was it. You know, I probably hovered in that space where you're making 20 grand a year type of thing for a really long time. Because I was investing in my business, which was music, merchandising, stuff like that. I was about $40,000 in debt in my 30s. And I think I started getting out of that debt when I was around 34. So 36 years old is when the trajectory started to change for me. It took a really long time and it was really tough. I remember that debt, $30,000 on a credit card. So the interest was out of control, and $10,000 on a loan, which that $10,000 loan I just paid back because it was with one of my partners about 2 years ago. So there's something there, but this is a choice I made. I chose not to be corporate. I didn't want to work for someone else. I really struggled with that. I really did. I was like the worst employee, and I'm a very hard worker, but when working for someone else, I just struggled. I just didn't have that piece. So that's it. That's a really interesting thing he brings up.
But the other thing that's going on is that if you look at when people's earnings start to really take off, it's in their kind of 30s and early 40s. Now, for Generation X, this coincided with the aftermath of the financial crisis of 2008, where wage growth across the world was very, very weak. So they were hit at just the moment when they were really going to see a takeoff in their earnings.
Callum, this all sounds a bit bogus to me. I mean, it's a 25-year cohort, millions and millions of people. Is there really such a thing as Generation X or any other generation?
The way I think about it is that there is a lot of fluff that is written about the generations. People love to read about the generations for some reason, and there's a lot of nonsense that goes along with it. But I think there's actually a lot of pretty robust historical and economic and sociological evidence that people of a certain cohort really do think about the world in different ways. So the kind of classic example would be if you look at people who grew up during Weimar Germany, they became much, much more averse to inflation than other Germans of different ages. Or if you look at Americans who are, accumulating wealth during the Great Depression, those people continued to be very skeptical of the stock market. And so I think you have to be careful about how you use this generational analysis, but I think it would be wrong to throw it out entirely.
I just found out about Weimar Germany probably about 4 years ago. It's crazy. Yo, that's where they have the pictures of people going into like a grocery store with like a wheelbarrow full of money because inflation was so high. Like that's what like, bro, I was like, that's when I was like, damn, dog, like that's crazy. And the Great Depression, one of the craziest stories I read from the Great Depression was when it hit, banks started shutting down, and people who were hardworking Americans were just like, oh, let me go to my bank and take my money out since all this stuff craziness is going on. And the banks just were like, oh, we don't have it, dog. Y'all let me know if I'm tripping on that. I remember reading that. Again, I'm not one of these people like, so I kind of touched the surface because this isn't my expertise. I'm not here to teach people about history or do all these things. I have conversations, but essentially, like the things that I really study is like I'm really getting into the economic sector, trying to understand business, scaling, tax code, etc. Martial arts. There's things that like that's my thing, but it's kind of wild that I don't get on here and talk about those things. But that's what I'm really focused on. These things are just interesting to me. But do they benefit my life and help me create success or economic favor for my family? Not necessarily. So I only touch the surface. Like I focus and prioritize on providing for my family. That's like really my thing.
But haven't Generation X done pretty well in terms of wealth accumulation and tending to own their own homes?
Well, that's what I thought, but when I looked into the data, I discovered that that wasn't the case. So there's often two big kind of components of someone's net wealth. One is to do with like savings, so often savings that are in retirement accounts or in the stock market, and the other is to do with if they own a home or not. So on the stock market, again, Generation X kind of had a tough time in the sense that the period during which they would be expected to accumulate most stock market wealth was a decade in which stock markets did really badly. That was the 2000s. They did particularly badly in the US, actually, where the US market really underperformed the global market. But global stock markets as a whole did pretty badly, partly because of the dot-com crash and partly because of the financial crisis crash. So they actually weren't really able to accumulate as much wealth as either previous or following generations. And the other thing about home ownership was also surprising to me. If you look at the older millennials, they're actually more likely to own a home than Generation X were of the same age. And again, the long shadow of the financial crisis is to blame here, because what you had in 2008 to 2011 was a large number of foreclosures and so on, particularly in the US. And the people who got hit hardest by that were Generation X. So as a result, they've not been able to get on the housing ladder to anywhere near the same degree as the baby boomers.
So I think there's some truth there. I don't own my house, and now that I'm trying to get in a position to buy a house, the way the markets are, there's multiple factors. For one, the way houses are built in America these days, it's really like they're not quality. The prices of houses, the interest rates, also the property tax. There's a bunch of different things that are leading me towards just investing into things that grow money instead of purchasing a home, right? I missed the boat. I should have bought a home right around when I was 27 or 28. But like I explained in this video, I didn't even make money. I was so broke. I was a brokey. I just literally toured, man. I went on the road. I would stay at people's houses, couch surf, just chasing the dream of being a rapper, right? I'm not a musician because I don't play instruments, but you get it, like that type of lifestyle. So I kind of missed that wave. But I did notice a few people in my generation have missed that wave too. Now, there's a ton of Gen X folks that have houses and they're good, right? They're fine. But statistically, he's saying that what he's saying, and there might be something to that. Anyways, I'm just letting y'all know how it went down for your boy.
So is there any hope on the horizon for Generation X? When are they going to come out of the U-bend of life into the happier decades?
So the U-bend will be left behind in 10 to 15 years, and then it will be the millennials' turn to become unhappy. So in that sense, that's optimistic. The future, though, for Generation X might not be that rosy either, for two reasons. One is that a lot of them are going to retire just at the point when pension systems really hit a crunch. So, for example, in the US, 2033 is seen by many people as the kind of crucial date at which the Social Security Trust Fund starts to kind of run out of money. And that will be just as some Generation Xers start to retire. The other thing that's going on is that an inheritance bonanza is coming as the baby boomers die off. But what's really going to happen is that money is going to be passed not to Generation X, but to millennials and Gen Z. So I'm afraid to say that the outlook for Generation X is not that good.
I'll try not to take it personally. Callum, thank you so much for talking to me.
Thank you, Mizzy.
I love her answer. Oh, Lord have mercy. That don't sound good. Yeah, I guess we're going to see. I mean, I don't have no pensions, 401k, stuff like that. I personally invest in IULs. That's through insurance, life insurance, right? So I have a life insurance policy, but I put in amount of money that's in an index and it grows, So that's my form of doing the 401k. I just like it better. I just like the way it works and pulling out the money tax-free and tax-free growth. I just personally like IULs better than the 401k or Roths and all that stuff. But I don't have a pension. I don't have health care. Like I'm independent entrepreneur. I have to handle everything myself through my S corp. So it's definitely different. So I don't have to worry about the pension stuff and Social Security. I'm not depending on none of that. I'm depending on myself. So different level of burden and things to look at. But I think he might have got it. Y'all let me know.
City boy, city boy.